Free thinking, guys. Innovative. Open-minded. Combination politics. It's the dawn of a new era, guys. It's the dawn of a era without concessions, reparations, impossibilities. I'm Tommy. When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, when peace will guide the planet and love will steer the stars, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius. Aquarius. It is from Pisces to Aquarius, guys. Harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust abounding, free thinking, innovative, independent, progressive media, www.TommyNationPolitics, Aquarius. Aquarius. It's a moment, guys, without the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Let's just put it that way. The tranquilizing drug of gradualism, guys. Who said that? Well, let me tell you. It was actually Dr. Martin Luther King in the wonderful and supreme speech, the I Have a Dream speech. It will be fatal for this nation to overlook the urgency of the moment, the sweltering summer of discontent. This will not pass, guys, until the invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam or to be content are in for a rude awakening, guys. It's time to throw off the shackling tranquilizing drug of gradualism and put on the fierce urgency of now. Fierce urgency of now, guys. Pointing out, guys, as Dr. King did, that all of the rights of Americans were always in peril, because this is our heritage, to maintain life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's part of our heritage to do that, guys. It's a very important thing. We're the guardians of liberty, the keeper of the keys, not the gatekeepers, not the billionaires, but the people. In order to establish justice, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, guys. It's a sacred duty. One that NATO, there's nothing, I mean, literally, it's a better one than NATO. Colonizing Europe, funneling all the resources back to that place, guys. It's time to get it hip to reality, guys. It's time to get hip to looking at, what do they say in that Hair musical? We starve to look at one another short of breath, walking proudly in our winter coats, wearing smells of laboratories, facing a dying nation of moving paper fantasies, listening for the new told lies with supreme visions of lonely tunes. The lies are here, guys. They're called propaganda, and they're all over the place during the midterms. But here at Tommy Nation Politics, I plan to give you a real strong dose of reality and free thinking, innovative, new, independent, progressive thought. Human beings are set in ways like iron. And you may think they never change and give up without trying. But don't ever give up. Look inside yourself, and you may see the light in you, a flame that just keeps burning. To you, unique epiphanies realized when you're discerning that it is a brotherhood of men. A benevolent brotherhood of men. Oh, aren't you proud to be in this fraternity? A benevolent brotherhood of men. What do you say, guys? Can we bury the hatchet? Let bygones be bygones, you know? Let's come together for the common good. It's the best way to be united. Hey, we free. Cause it's a brotherhood, brotherhood of men. Brotherhood of men. A benevolent brotherhood of men. Aren't you proud to be in this fraternity? A benevolent brotherhood of men. Our lifelong membership is free. Keep giving each brother all you can. Aren't you proud to be in this fraternity? A benevolent brotherhood of men. It's a brotherhood. Y'all have the brotherhood of man. Everything you need. Keep giving each other you all you can. I'm so proud to be in this fraternity. A benevolent brotherhood of man. Our lifelong membership is free. Keep giving each brother all you can. A benevolent brotherhood of man. Brother. Fraternity. Brotherhood of man. It's just a brotherhood of man. A benevolent brotherhood of man. Oh, aren't you proud to be in this fraternity? A benevolent brotherhood of man. Our lifelong membership is free. Our membership is free. Keep giving each brother all you can. Aren't you proud to be in this fraternity? A benevolent brotherhood of man. Brotherhood of man. Oh, good. I'm back. Jesus, I couldn't get control of it for a second, guys. So anyway, brotherhood of man, guys. Now, brother, you know the Muslims, they used to call themselves brother you, brother Fatah, brother Muhammad. One of my favorite Muslims of all time, of course, Malcolm X. He's a controversial figure in the civil rights era. He was, if he were alive today, sometimes I wonder what he would think about the issues that we're facing as a country, because they're strangely, like I said, familiar to what we're currently facing. Police brutality, a high elite class of bitch ass crony capitalists. And also, guys, the failures of the Democratic Party. There was a lot of failures of the Democratic Party, and of course, Lyndon B. Johnson famously said on Air Force One with one of the most racist governors of all time, Alabama governor, that I'll have those niggers voting Democrat for 200 years. Little did he know, those niggers might just be voting Democrat for the last 200 years, guys. But Malcolm X, he didn't like that so much. Why? Well, he often spoke out against the American establishment. You see, guys, we've been colonizers for a very long time. And the American political power, no matter whether it be Democratic or Republican, they failed the African American communities in the 60s. Just like they failed the gay community in the 80s. And now they're currently failing women 2020. You can think of this as a pattern. Think of them as only wanting to maintain the status quo. Don't forget the first compromise with the Democrats and Republicans, guys, was whether or not they should have free states or slave states. Well, not whether or not slavery was evil, but why don't we maintain the status quo? Why do we have nobody unhappy about this? You know, we need the slave holder vote, and of course we need the poor white farmer vote. So why don't we just have slave states and regular states? Could be good for everybody, right? These are the kind of compromises that the Democrats and Republicans often use. And they've never changed from that, guys. Never changed from selling out the country and compromising with racists. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this whole Joe Biden presidency is an old classic pastime, kind of like it's like one of those remakes from the 1950s. Except there's like no Coca-Cola with cocaine in it. There's no cool like 2.3 kids and they're all on one income going to college and the guy's literally paying for everything. I mean, literally, that's a dream come true. There's no beautiful parts of the 50s and 60s, the Industrial Revolution. There's just the neoliberalism that's culminated into income inequality, not seen since the Gilded Age, and a political class that plays footsie with the private sector to get government contracts. And in return, they get insider trading. These are all problems, guys, that we could have solved if we didn't have two big problems. And those problems are the Democrats and Republicans.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
Tommy Nation Politics.
50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation. 100 years later,
wow,
the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later,
that's amazing.
The Negro is of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned.
Insofar as the citizens of color are concerned, guys. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King said in 1963 while doing a march on Washington. That was the Lincoln Memorial, guys, in 1963. Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about how throughout the history of the United States and the duopoly political party system, the Democrats and Republicans, there was a ray of light of the withering injustice, the Emancipation Proclamation. There was a joyous daybreak that introduced a possibility that America might live up to its own promise that all men are created equal, each one endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But he goes on to say, 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. So, change, guys, it's a long, hard journey. And that's why we need all the work we can put into it, guys. And we need all the help we can get. All the real help we can get. And so, y'all know me, Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics, also one of your admins from Free Thinkers Group that work in the middle. I want to talk to you guys about change. And I want to talk to you about the enemy of change. I want to talk to you about a drug. No, not the vicious heroin that the Cantaloupe Calves immigrants of the southern border are carrying open with their crime and their raping. Some are good people. I'm not talking about the drugs that are too expensive because our pharmaceutical companies are in bed with our politicians. And we give them government contracts. And in turn, they run our country while the politicians enjoy insider trading. I'm not talking about those drugs. I'm talking about a metaphorical drug. I'm talking about the drug of, it's a tranquilizing drug of gradualism, guys. And it's talking about, in the tranquilizing drug of gradualism, guys, it's a term that Martin Luther King used in the I Have a Dream speech, which illustrates the concessions that politicians give to the black community in response for their incremental changes. Police reform, voting rights, civil rights. These are all very interesting concessions to make. Keep in mind, guys, the first concession that was made on the behalf of black Americans was the fact that some of us were going to be in free states and some of us were going to be in slave states. And that's how they maintained the status quo. This is how the Democrats and Republicans maintained the status quo in the 19th century. They decided to carve up the country into slave states and free states. And that was their first compromise. Just remember that, guys. Now let's talk about real, actual life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, guys. Let's talk about how in this country, every American has citizenship rights, and therefore, on behalf of the Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, a lot of people say that the Republican Party, they were the beginnings of the progressive movement with civil rights, the Emancipation Proclamation, which it's arguable why Abraham Lincoln did that. Did he want to, destroy the South, make the South look bad? Yes. But also, guys, in the wake of politics, it came as a joyous daybreak that out of all of this compromising between free states and slave states, between electoral college and sharecropping land, the United States might actually live up to its promise to have all men created equal and have all men have the same justice, the way it was intended. Now, as Martin Luther King pointed out in the I Have a Dream speech, that promissory note was defaulted. Why did we default on our promise, guys? That all men are created equal. It's the same reason why we default on our deficit. Well, we haven't defaulted, we just raised the debt ceiling. It's the same reason why we haven't gotten Roe v. Wade enshrined into law. I know you were tired of hearing this, guys, but I'm going to take every advantage I possibly can to drill into your heads the fact that there's only two reasons why we don't have cheap prescription drugs and a healthcare system that's available to all Americans. There's only two reasons why we don't have legalized marijuana. There's only two reasons why people are in jail for smoking plants. There's only two reasons why the Patriot Act is renewed over and over every single Congress. There's only two reasons why in 48 hours, while you were wondering what you were going to do and how you were going to afford your house and your rent, how you're going to feed your kids, put food on the table for your families, in 48 hours, the Democrats and Republicans bailed out the banks, Wall Street, and the military-industrial complex. It's a very interesting thing, these concessions. What they really are, guys, is they're lies. They're lies to make you feel like these people relate to you. For some reason, you believe it. But I just want to go through all through history, guys, of how many times, and this is probably the difference between me and a lot of liberals. You know, Justin, he's a nice guy, I'm sure. I don't really think he knows what he's saying when he talks about how I make the Republicans look a certain way and I'm supposed to defend them or I'm supposed to do anything. I'm not supposed to do anything when it comes to these two parties, because these two parties, just to remind you, their first compromise, these two parties, was to make me a slave in the slave states and free in the free states. Now, here's something else that Malcolm X says about the hypocrisy of the political parties. I want you guys to listen closely to the problems of the 1960s and see if they don't ring familiarly true today.
Don't scare Negroes today with no badge or no white skin or no white sheet or no white anything else. The police the same way. They put their club upside your head and then turn around and accuse you of attacking them. Every case of police brutality against a Negro follows the same pattern. They attack you, bust you all upside your mouth, and then take you to court and charge you with assault. What kind of democracy is that? What kind of freedom is that? What kind of social or political system is it when a black man has no voice in court, has nothing on his side other than what the white man chooses to give him? My brothers and sisters, we have to put a stop to this, and it will never be stopped.
Now, I don't know if, because I'm not female, but I don't know if this rings true, these words of how the powerful blame you. And it's really sad, guys, because not just the powerful blame you for the problems that they cause, but also the puppets of the rich, the partisans. They seem to have a notion where we're supposed to be beholden to a party that does not deliver on its concessions. Now, once again, guys, the concessions that was promised to Black Lives Matter of police reform, done. The concessions that were promised to Bernie Sanders about Medicare for all, forgotten. The concessions that were meant for liberal females that want pro-choice rights, the Democrats, guys, they're caught flat-footed. Without a plan for the possible end of Roe v. Wade. They're just absolutely astounded, guys. It's like they have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and yet a leaked draft opinion shows the Supreme Court likely to overturn Roe v. Wade. It seems like Biden and the Democrats voice outrage. They kneel for George Floyd and they say, "Thank you for your sacrifice, George Floyd." But it turns out they seem to be too weak to stop a 50-year organized attempt to overturn a law. Now, the conservatives, guys, you have to give it to them. I really can go back and forth on abortion rights. I'm not a woman, so I don't really have a strong opinion. I feel like you should do what's good for you, always. And fuck you guys. Fucking whoever says the opposite. Do you guys. And do it good. It's my opinion on everything. But guys, the opinion of the conservatives has always been the same opinion. They've literally vetted judges for 50 years. What are you going to do when you get on the Supreme Court? What's the first thing you're going to do with the Supreme Court? Roe v. Wade, right, guys? So now we have a Supreme Court that's poised to do it. Can you be mad at the Supreme Court for it's like you can't even be mad at them because they've told you for 50 years that they were planning to do this. Now, if I was a real opposition, I would put a strategy in place to stop that, wouldn't I? If I was a real opposition of racism, would I put a strategy in place to stop the racism? To stop the police brutality? Let me ask you a question, guys. Why don't the Democrats do that? While you're so busy talking about how I am enabling Republicans, while you're so busy talking about how the Republicans are so racist and so sexist and misogynist, they're so numbskulls. Well, why don't you take a look at the party that holds all three branches of the government? That literally Nancy Pelosi has the FBI as a Praetorian Guard, fact-checking and spying and tapping phones, carving up stories of Steele dossiers. It's amazing, guys, all the power that they have when they want to investigate the Republican Party and do a 9/11 style commission. But they don't have the power, guys, it seems, to deliver on the promises of the American people. Now, as a black person, I've noticed that this has been going on since the beginning. And so I hope that you white privileged partisan hacks can catch up to the historical reality of things. That we don't have a government that works for all of us and not the few. We have a government, all of us, we have a government that works for just the few, guys. And all they want to do is create division to maintain the status quo, and that's what they're about to do. And I promise you guys, if this court does overturn Roe v. Wade, they'll just use this as a campaign strategy to try to put more justices on the bench once you vote blue. No, you just got to vote more Democrats. Then we can put more justices on the bench. Exactly what they were saying during the Trump administration, guys. They failed at that. You got to wonder, guys, is it on purpose? Or are they complicit to this? Are they really just Dixiecrats, guys? It's a very interesting thing how this has been a 70-year debate, this Roe v. Wade phenomenon. And yet, we seem to be right back at square one with a dementia-riddled old man who supported Jim Crow, segregated busing, and yes, guys, he supported putting people in jail for abortion. He was one of the most conservative Democrats that I've ever seen in my life. And as far as I can tell, I don't really know what conservative is anymore because George W. Bush, he said he was conservative and he bailed out the banks. What Malcolm X said was, he said about Joe Biden, we won't organize any black man to be a Democrat or Republican because both of them have sold us out. Both of them have sold out the country. Both parties have sold out the people. And the Democratic Party is more racist than the Republican Party. This was when Lyndon B. Johnson said, I'm going to get every nigger to vote Democrat with my Civil Rights Act. Famously, Lyndon B. Johnson said that the black vote was still at all-time high with the Democrats. And Lyndon B. Johnson called them niggas. Here, you hear Joe Biden echoing the same Dixiecrat language, distinct minority, lawbreakers, super predators. The hypocrisy of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is transparent for all to see. And they continuously do what they intend to do every single day. Bailing out the banks, bailing out their donors, regime change wars, funneling the money to their donors back again. These are the things that they want to do, guys. These are the things that are getting done. If you want to know what these two parties are up to, Check out what laws are passing. Check out these aid packages. Look what's inside those. Those aren't things for you. Those are not concessions and campaign promises kept for you. They're deals from smoke-filled rooms that have nothing to do with you. And the thing that saddens me the most about this is that some of you really do honestly think it does. And those are the reasons that they can hide behind us as human shields as they funnel the wealth of their donors, destroy the country, rob us blind, and create division that makes us still to this day have these same issues that the people of this country were facing in 1963. It's amazing, guys. I mean, you get what you vote for, right? Think about that, guys. While the Tiki Torch Nazis of Charleston were gallivanting around their little shorts and their fucking, I don't know, roars and cheers. Whatever they were shouting. I don't even remember. Treasure, blooded treasure. Think about the guy that rose from that to restore the soul of the country. Think of the guy that campaigned off of that one issue. Think of the guy that got up off the guy. That was the thing that got Joe Biden president. So, to sum it all up, guys, they don't give a shit about you. They're complicit and together, in cahoots, passing these laws on purpose. They're funneling wealth to their donors, and also, to boot, they've betrayed the country. If we keep voting for them, we're complicit in that. And you could justify it any way you want to. Oh, it's a wasted vote. All of these little things that you're gurgling and gargling and snorting at me are just things that they've told you to say, things that they've programmed you with over the years, things that they've got the mainstream media and Trevor Noah to fucking tell you over and over and over again, until it sounds like you thought of it first. It's called propaganda. It's never going to be real. And we're always going to have these problems, and it's up to us to fix those problems. The good news is we still have a constitution that gives us a promise, a future, and a goal. Are we going to take the chance to have courage and make things the way they should be? Are we going to live up to the promise of the Constitution of equality? Or are we going to be following in the bandwagon mentality, the conventional wisdom and social norms? Where does it get you? All the problems, all up for stumping, fundraising, re-election campaigns, and more. But definitely not solved. Do you still want to live in this America, guys, that we're creating with our stupidity and our apathy? I don't. I plan not only on fighting the puppets of the rich and defeating them, but I plan on defeating any sycophant partisan that would tell me that is a wasted vote, that you should give up, that you should not endeavor to change things. Nope. Being involved in the tranquilizing drug of gradualism, guys, it's I'd rather die 1,000 times, guys, and die and rise again than to degrade the country with enabling two political parties that have usurped the reins of government and have carved for themselves to maintain power. Power that belongs to us. I know I was kind of like, I was rambling actually a little bit, guys, because I really do want somebody to come on here one day and just, I want to figure out why the fuck you guys still to this day, after all the shit they've pulled, after all the regime change wars, after all the lies, the propaganda, after all the missing emails, after all the insurrection phone calls, after all the fucking tapped Brad Raffensperger calls, After all the fucking coups, after all the civil liberties they've tried to take from you, after all of the smear jobs that they've done to regular American people, how are we still playing this game? And how do you still think that standing up to these evil men is wasted vote? How can you even say that? I just want somebody to come on here and I want to argue with that. Like, you guys, I swear to God, you won't, because there's no possible logical way that you really think that. And I know that. I know deep down you guys know what you're doing. And you might think it's fun or dramatic or some soap opera, but it's ruining the country. And I'm serious. I'm going to stop it. People have tried. People have died. They've been assassinated. I don't really give a shit, bro. It's going to end one way or another. And I'll tell you that, guys. Ashley, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. How can we get people to stand up? We really got to. It's getting worse and worse. Game show host. Now we got a Dimitri Riddle man. Who's next? Kermit the Frog? Guys, let's take our power back. Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.